Rich teacher, poor teacher. What successful teachers do. Chapter 1. The dose looked directly into his eyes and confronted him. What were you thinking, Benz? I wonder what flashed into your mind before pushing that door. Now that the girl has a nasty bruise. Her parent is suing the school if you do not comply. Poor Benz, whose saliva choked him, shook with dread upon netting his boss's claim. He stammered thrice, Mr. Dos. He could not speak. His eyes grew red. He wanted to explain how it was. Unfortunately, the Dos's cell phone buzzed. The girl's parent had called. The man was tasked to present the criminal to him and explain how he hit his daughter. The big boss was nodding vertically. Benz knew he had no escape route. There was no one to fight for his rights. Who fights for the rights of a teacher? Benz Kato was a high school teacher who walked into Messiah School with great expectations. He believed his life would never be the same again. Right, he was wrong. No, he wasn't. Whatever it was, he was sweating under his armpits. He had no idea that going to the toilet to ease himself as a normal human being would yield doom. That fateful day, Benzi, as usual, sloped to the lavatories from where he jazzed with the cleaners. It was his nature, so social, cool, and humorous. He picked a toilet paper, then entered the last room. This happened at the time this young girl of 14 trotted towards the same door. The rest of the rooms had been occupied. She stood in front anxiously contemplating on what to do. She took a deep breath inside, then out at once. No sooner had she knocked the door than the door opened. She screamed a bit as Teacher Benzi rushed out with apologies. It was an accident. When the students around saw this, they mocked the girl. Cleaners laughed at her as she ran away crying. "Teacher, are you fine?" one of the girls asked. "You hit her the door. Everyone has seen." The rest added with one voice. "Yes!" Benzi sensed danger. He courageously called it an accident, turned to the sink, and watered the hands. His heart raced inside, though a smiling face painted another picture of him. Did he have a handkerchief? Oh, he thought he had forgotten it on his classroom table and wiped the fingers on his black trousers. One girl asked if he had no cloth with him as she pulled out a white handkerchief. She was feeling pity for him. Poor teacher did the needful and picked it immediately. It was then he realized that his checked handkerchief was resting in one corner of the left pocket. He was off track. From there, he panicked to the classroom looking for the girl. She was there seated with a head leaning on the table. Her forehead had swollen a bit. He helped her slope to the sick bay amidst endless apologies. He knew his survival was this girl's mercy. He explained to the nurse and left. Oh, he thought it was done until 4 teachers surrounded him with the same message. The head teacher had summoned him. He promptly pushed him to narrate the whole story, for the parent was bitter about the teacher's conduct. Benz cleared his voice, then intoned that the girl knocked at the time he opened the door. It was a coincidence. He further added that he apologized to the student, then went ahead to escort her to the nurse. The head teacher cooperated and promised to arrest the situation as soon as possible. He walked out shaking the head in disapproval of the system. Things were not moving as expected. The following day, the dose raised him asking for a formal apology to the learner, for the parent wished to see a signed document. In addition, he was forced to address the class and bow down to the student. The first question was, "What do I want?" The answer was clear: the job. Benz did as told. What a loyal teacher. He was ever in depression, stress, and looked miserable. He always smiled, laughed, cracked jokes, danced, cried where necessary if it made learners happy. That is how he passed by grade 10 classroom. Credo's eyes were out, watching for the chemistry lesson was not ending. Light burned in his eyes despite what he was going through. He never cared about the humiliation. When the two eyes met, he smiled as she wore a genuine smile. Yeah, he was too handsome and young to be their teacher. That is what they thought. But he wasn't. Suddenly, a voice called his name softly. "Benz." Another girl stood in front of him. Chapter 2. There was no big deal. They shook hands while greeting and parted. His days were occupied with learners who hijacked his free time. Benz was so famous and popular at school that most of the teachers envied him. I too did the same at a certain point until I sank deep into his circle. He was a different creation. Benz Kato was a tall young man who looked 28 at the time I met him, with a chocolate skin complex. He was indeed slim with round black eyes that looked unique at people's sight. Many admired his curled eyelashes, which made him a bit attractive. His nose was long and pointed, and this made many doubt his country of origin. Anyway, he was a Ugandan. I, too, was by the time joined this college. Benz was still fresh. He had reported 2 days back when I arrived. Unfortunately, we were teaching the same subjects, thus one had to let go of the job for a full academic year while praying to the Creator to pave a way. None was ready to sacrifice his position after admission. The administrative office caught fire because we had quitted the previous jobs for this. After a long quarrel, Benz looked at my situation. Silence colonized him. Little did I know that he was calculating the money value of my garments. I kept on boasting that I was a national examiner. Ha ha ha! Benz shall never see heaven. He calmly told the HRM that he was stepping down. Oh my God. This was a real jackpot for me. I had no idea he could make such a tough decision. There are things I cannot joke with. My wife and job. Benz was different. He had hills of financial challenges, but when he evaluated, he saw I needed this job more. This fool. I remember that Friday afternoon when I leaned on the HR's office door, putting on an old sky blue shirt, a pale black silk pair of trousers, well-polished shining black shoes, and white ankle socks. I learned of late that Benz never considered my 3-year-old pair of shoes that I had bought $9, then repair expenses for. I had visited the cobbler thrice that year. Other years are in medulla oblongata. The torn socks and damaged belt betrayed me. Frankly speaking, poverty smelt on me. This was a common problem. Almost everyone was poor, the sacrificial lamb inclusive. Benz had foreseen a possibility of firing one or both of us, and the institution scheme for another candidate. It was his opinion to let go. It was overwhelming. None believed him. There he walked out of the school, leaving us watching his movements. Yeah, he vanished in thin air. 30 minutes later, he stood in front of the chair to which I sat looking through the syllabus. It was new to me. My heart raced. I thought he had come to pick up a quarrel with me. I was wrong. He opened his bag and searched it thoroughly well as he opened his bag and searched it thoroughly well as if he was looking for his dagger. Oh, shame upon me. He pulled out all the requisite books which he handed over to me, showed me the past papers and mark schemes, lectured me on how to download work from the internet, then took me to the school library from where he signed out for the books that I took. Silence covered me. My inner man doubted this guy. He looked like a wizard. I feared him further, especially his divine lamentations. God will make a way. Everything happens for a reason. He was extremely disappointed, but I was counting minutes while licking my finger, waiting for him to depart. Finally, he left. I would have taken a sign of the cross if I were Catholic anyway. There was a heavy sigh of relief. The job became mine officially, given that my sole competitor had gone. There I met the head of department physics, who allocated the workload amicably, and I set to leave. He was a fine guy, cool and down to earth. It was my first time to see him. He looked so busy, indeed, too busy to work with us. I never saw him again. When school opened, Benzi was called to take. Chapter 3. He kissed his rosary and proclaimed the word of God. Everyone looked at him as a fool. No one trusted his ability to teach. The problem Benz was so humble that whatever happened to him, he would find a way of appreciating it. So obedient, he looked like a nobody. Maybe he was. It was then I realized that he had 2 wives. One had given birth to twins and the second one expecting. I landed on this vital information from his cell phone messages when he assisted me with it to call home. He was a man and a half. It was unbelievable, however, a reality, because he could not lie to his mom. I was ever suspicious about him. I never trusted any of his words, judged him the way just like any other person did. For teaching, it was a different process. We moved on well. We got acclimatized to the new environment, which had many teachers and students from different countries. Outside the daily routine, schemes of work, lesson plans, they used to call them pedagogical documents. There was supervision of teachers. Someone was hired to check, sign, and give feedback after inspection. Did this cause entropy for teachers who carried the cross? We never asked why, and this killed creativity during teaching and learning. Seriously, this work is too much for a teacher to handle. Someone expects you to prepare this while at home, then report to school ready to carry on with the activities of the day. To hell with the pedagogical documents. To hell with inspection, I hear supervision, classroom management. To hell with teaching. I spent over 20 years in school and graduated as a teacher. I was supervised, tested, and proven good enough to teach the level I teach. You do not have to mock me further with interviews. You are not Satan. Usually, the interviewer has the same qualifications with the interviewee. This person has no authority over carrying on this activity. What if they discover that the interviewee is too good to be employed, as he may become a future threat to the interviewer's jobs and maliciously fail him? What if the interviewer knows the interviewee on a personal ground and give a biased judgment? What if there is a bribe somewhere? Give the qualified person a teacher the job and trust them with it and let them work. They will deliver to expectation. You do not need to supervise a mature person all the time as if they are prisoners. Respect teachers. How I wish all teachers in the world would refuse to be interviewed by fellow teachers to kill the unfairness of you had failed, but it was my effort that you are here. Nonsense. By the time someone submits their credentials, brief expression of themselves, a right candidate is already detected there and then. I met few two old men from two schools. These looked at grade 12 certificates only. They had the best performing schools in their countries. They were never disappointed. They never asked more questions. That was their way. The issue of experience counts a lot while offering jobs. What if I tell you that experience is good for failures because there is never upgrade? Learn new things since they repeat similar things all day, all year. The better person has no experience. That is an inspiration. After succeeding from one level, they move straight away to another. Never ask for experience. To be sincere, if we offer jobs to experienced people, where shall the fresh graduates or workers work? Trust the teacher with your work and wait for results. You will never be disappointed. I repeat, trust teachers. Chapter 4. Someone may ask me whether I know about other professions. I wish to say no. However, let's ask ourselves if dentists first revise how to cement the tooth. Do midwives carry child delivery plans, yet these handle more sensitive areas? I mean, they deal with people's lives. Some things are done without second thought. Let's not harass teachers. Let them have enough time to think. How can such an occupied brain think clearly? In our home area, the informal sector workers mock each other if they goes badly, as in if they don't earn any cent. I am leaving the streets like a teacher today, nothing to take home. At first, I was speaking as I faked a smile, but now I can genuinely laugh. They were right. I have realized that everyone in the society knows about my job, the most despised. Last week, I visited my friend who teaches a primary school. As we were talking, he pulled out his primary 5 students' book to mark. Oh Lord, can you imagine? This time was his, but the man was sweating with his boss's work. I swear I shall never do school activities at my home. This is beyond colonialism, but imperialism. No, it is being in prison. While he was still marking about future careers learners can do, those they cannot, and those they cannot, a learner ticked all jobs except one, teaching. You have understood. Harrison, I cannot be a teacher because it is the worst job ever. What a mentality. What a rogue mindset. Things must change and make education a lovable and respectable job. Another student wrote, I can become a teacher if I do not want to become rich. As if these kids were taught that teachers are the ancestors of poverty. I think this is wrong because not all poor people on earth are teachers. A teacher can become a very important person. Many teachers end up upholding noble offices, presidents to village levels. Some are successful business persons, academicians, comedians, and others. Maybe they mean a classroom teacher. The disrespect for teachers begins from their employers who majorly see these experts as beggars. Many think they are useless, expendable, can hire and fire without a second thought. It would be understandable for bosses who have never been teachers, but most of them have been teachers and have tasted the ordeal of being a teacher. It is a blessing to teach someone, however, we have demonized the whole thing. We look at educators as volunteers, despise them, hate them, as if teaching the nation is a crime. Everyone crucifies a teacher. They expect him to be perfect at the expense of the injustices exercised on him. Many fear to mention that they are teachers. A few swallow pins and speak it out loudly that I am a proud teacher. This statement means that the profession is under threat. That is why the brave ones come out to speak with their little pride. A cat pusher insults a teacher. A taxi driver does the same. A policeman does it more. A student hits it hard. A parent does not want to know. The boss sees trash. The in-laws see a loser. And family members take you as a failure. What a curse. Whoever wants to judge me, do so, but let me pour my pain. Let me cry for all teachers in the world and shout out that teachers' lives matter. Let them be paid like other workers in other professions. This is because a teacher is a miracle performer. He is given stones to turn them into bread. The pupil is brought with a plain slate in the head, and the teacher begins to paint. What a hero! You have no idea to serve a customer who is not interested in the service paid for. If it is normal, no student cherishes learning until they have been taught the benefits of education. A teacher has to chase after a student and persuade her to learn. He has to use all means to promote active learning. He is a musician who sings to put a smile on the customer's face. He dances for them, bends so low to please them. A teacher carries the stress from all families on his head and still puts on a smiling face. A kid annoyed from home takes the rage to the teacher. Those fighting finish it with the teacher. He is a judge. He is a counselor. No, he is everything. I think I am a bit relieved. I could not just keep quiet. Chapter 5. Now that my brain has cleared, Benz's deeds surfaced again. He was highly talented in technology, having worked with the whites in Zambia. He selfishly worked with us wholeheartedly. He selflessly worked with us wholeheartedly and made many think he had spent over 2 years in this school. He was Ben's K, the coolest. He spoke a lot about everything, highly informed, had an idea at least on everything. He liked conversing just like any other person. But one thing that made him better than us, he was a good listener. He was proud. I never liked the way he used to boast about some things. Anyway, he finally became my friend. I began trusting him. He deserved. He earned it. He was ever nice to everyone. At least every worker owed him something. He became my best friend at work. Now that things had turned against him, my head never rested. Days passed. Maths as well. My turn had come. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I walked to the whiteboard. With my blue marker, I wrote the lesson objectives while asking the rest to settle down. There I reviewed the previous lesson, then backed at the shouting to keep quiet. From a blow, students of stage 12 passed around the classroom making noise. The rest of the class lost control at once. Eyes were out. Oh God. As soon as I walked to stop them, the door opened and the deputy head teacher moved in. He was very bitter and quarreled in front of the class. He threatened to fire me if I ever failed to manage the class again. I felt his heart running out, the sweat dropping rapidly. Panic conquered me as I stood to silence the learners. There I wrote the Newton's law of motion and turned to explain. There was a certain girl standing right next to me, talking to a friend. As I raised the hand to smack at her shoulder, she bent a bit, then the hand sloped right to her buttock. I knew trouble had come. The entire classroom shouted at once. Boys warned that girls were not beaten. Someone called it sexual assault. I knew I was dead. Initially, the girl walked majestically to her seat, then stood up and burst into tears. She faced me and lamented that I had touched her butt. The day darkened that afternoon when a girl asked me whether I was okay. She was right, I was not okay, but pretended to be all right. A few minutes later, a boy asked the same question. I understood the entire class had noticed my instability. They were giggling. Oh, whatever move I tried became suspicious. One at last advised me to relax. Good enough, the bell went. It was like a green light in the middle of a traffic jam. I promptly galloped to the head teacher's office to report myself. Guess what? The girl had just left. Mr. Bossa was there with the two options. Either to look for the girl and apologize, or I leave the country with immediate effect if I was not ready to rot in prison. He openly revealed it to me that he had no say about the rights of a teacher, for almost the same scenario happened to him. He narrated that my safety based on the nature of the girl's parents. Those who were highly diplomatic would in no minute be at school with the investigation department. But the business persons paid less attention to such issues. I think the world had turned upside down because the educated behaved like people who had never gone to school. There I looked for the girl and frankly apologized to her. She urged that I would have beaten any other part of her body, but not her butt. Her mom had warned her against such a misfortune, for it had happened to her during the old school days. The lady advised her daughter not to annoy teachers to reach an extent of slapping her buttocks. Friendly, I spoke to this innocent soul and let her go. There, I waited the following day for the head teacher to call me. He did not. Thank God the girl never reported me to her parents. The head teacher's story was far different. Thank God he shared with me. He was a slave like an ass, answerable to our enslavers. I believe one day a teacher will get tired of all the mistreatment and walk away from a school and never turn back. That will be the victory of a teacher. She will join the informal sector, blend in, and become the strongest middle class. He will join politics and become the best leader the world has ever seen. Chapter 6. A teacher is so patient. Used to poor and delayed payments, he can become a volunteer and change the society. This is better than teaching in a system that does not appreciate. Let's quit teaching, suffer out there for a few years, and finally germinate strong and become more fruitful. There, history shall remember us for paving a lucrative way for the future teachers. This is because living shall create a vacuum that will require massive enrollment. It will cause scarcity for teachers, leading to increase in their demand. Thus, by default, the wages of teachers shall skyrocket. There, the teacher will be able to comfortably educate his child in the school of his choice, will drive the vehicle of his dream, and will walk with the head above shoulders. I swear a rich teacher shall inspire a rich generation. Frankly speaking, how can an economics teacher explain the market system, saving and investment, yet he cannot afford establishing a single business? How shall we mobilize them about the benefits of education, yet we are struggling with life? I had forgotten where I was because of the head teacher's story. Bossa had 6 students kneeling in his office, having rebelled against the disciplinary committee. When he asked each to explain their issues, the 4 apologized and were forgiven. The 5th refused and asked Bossa to do what he wanted. The 6th lifted him with her eyes up and down 3 times. When he checked their books, the 6th one had nothing. The 6th one had nothing written, yet the parent had struggled to finish the last installment of her school fees. As a parent, he gave them a few slaps and asked them to copy the notes, miss no more classes, and conduct themselves well. That evening, parents called like nothing, complaining about the school's uncouth policies of beating up students. The following morning, 2 parents stormed the head teacher's office, fuming. Bossa explained that one of them calmed down. However, the parent to the 6th student backed at the man in front of her daughter and abused him like nothing. At least she would have told the kid to move out. The lady wanted to slap the head teacher such that he could feel the pain he had put on her daughter. She later called him a hard up who did not deserve to head a school. She promised to push the case to great heights. Days passed. Mr. Bossa received a phone call from the Ministry of Education. He was summoned. When informed the director of the school, the man disowned Mr. Bossa and advised him to use a private lawyer because his crimes were not connected to the school. That is when he realized that he was alone in this. He called a relative who escorted him to the ministry. The pick-up vehicle, Toyota Hilux, was already parking outside the offices, with police officers waiting to arrest him. He was in total fear until the door opened for him to enter. The parent was there waiting. When Bosa greeted her, she jeered him as the minister entered. He was a tender man who looked sensible and wise. He gave the lady a chance to speak first. Her demands were clear. Let his license be cancelled and deported. He played with a wrong family. When Bosa explained how it was, shame conquered the woman. She lamented that the problem that head teacher never communicated. The minister advised Mr. Bosa to always talk to the parent before issues worsened, and also asked the parent to call for peace first. It was a big day for Bosa. He had almost lost his job. If the minister never listened, he would be jailed. That is how parents see us, the monsters who should not be close to their children. The children is babysitters, nothing beyond that. How can a man like Bosa stand for presidency? What will he use to campaign? Who will vote for him? I also wish to become the governor of our province. But who shall listen to my words? Who shall support me or vote for me? I know they will not, because I am a teacher. Chapter 7. Since then, I swore never to care about students. If I find them coupling, I simply pass and pretend not to have seen. After all, no one cares. It hurts because I was not trained to fail, but to shape the best generation. My hands were tied. I saw this happen one day. There was a couple caught ready-handed eating the fruit from the school toilet. The girl's parent asked for a virgin to judge the case and went ahead to inquire if her daughter was to get married to any of the school administrators. The director ended up advising for counseling sessions to begin for this needed help. The director ended up advising for counseling sessions to begin for these needed help. He ordered the school chaplain to pray for the young couple. Case closed. This was too much. I wanted to resign. It was easy to fire a teacher compared to expelling a student. That was the meeting, so absurd. Reporting a student was useless, for nothing could be done. But if a student reported a teacher, the entire school would know. I have to confess that what was going on in this school was beyond my understanding. The education of the white man was so good, for it brought civilization to us. However, it killed us. It washed away morality in Africa, brought permissiveness, and gave birth to a lazy and irresponsible society in the name of freedom and democracy. All of these were lies. No, the white man blundered. There is a high degree of individualism, selfishness, man eats man's society, over-exploitation of workers, and broad daylight enslavement. I would like to riot against this, but who will join me to walk to the parliament and hand in my issue of changing the curriculum to the one that suits our continent, the one that shall solve our problems, not this foreign thing we call international? Anyway, what is the difference between the local and international curriculum? The Newton's laws are the same. The definition of demand prevails, and the assessment is the same. Oh, I get, both are foreign things. Then I get to the point of the imperialism. The brains of our people were robbed of reality and established a great wall of lies. This is too strong, that whoever tries to see the truth is hated, condemned, bullied, isolated, abused, or at times arrested or imprisoned. According to the lies, there are issues you were not allowed to reason about if you wish to stay in peace with others. Never condemn the foreign God and never hail the native God. Right now, using a capital G to write the native God is hurting someone. Never talk about religion because people shall hate you for no reason, even if your explanation is valid with evidence. This is because religion is the most efficient tool that carries one out brainwashing successfully. This makes a highly learned person think like an idiot. No, asking, but to believe. God has no problem, and we pray to him, but the politics around religion makes everything chaotic. If we were so religious and attend to prayers weekly, why do we fence our homes and chase the beggars, block the would-be visitors, passers-by, from accessing us, but sit and share a seat during public prayers? Are we humans or monsters? Why is it that when I wrong or punish your child at school because I want to put it right, your only decision is I should be fired or arrested, but when I meet you at the church, you say hi to me with a lovely smile? Devil. Before you discriminate against teachers, please make sure that you do the following. Build schools and teach your children. Have separate churches. Set up your own shops, market places, roads, recreation centers, neighborhoods, such that you never at any single time meet a leper, a teacher. We shall be happy because no one shall ever mistreat us. However, if you still struggle with the school fees for your children, buy from shops of teachers. Go to the same mosque, take the same oxygen like a teacher. If you live on the same planet with a teacher, please style up and accept civilization. Then treat a teacher fairly. He is a parent like you. Join me and agitate for a higher payment for a teacher. This is because this stressed man spends more time with your child than you do. He knows your son more and can spoil that boy with ease if he chooses to do so. Once a teacher earns a reasonable wage, the learners and parents shall attach importance to him, thus his career elevated, and this man will be motivated to deliver to students who are ready and willing to learn.